Hello everyone, Chris Carroll with Healthcare Margin Specialist. The reason for this video today is I want to help you do your own margin improvement. That's right, some of you want to do your own margin improvement. You're not quite ready to bring us in for whatever reason. You think maybe you need to try it yourself first. I respect that. We'd rather do it to help you do it, and we think we can be more successful. But hey, if you want to try it yourself, this video is for you. We're going to kind of walk through it. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to use one of our blog posts, 5 reasons you shouldn't DIY your margin improvement. But we're going to through that, we're going to show you ways you can do it if you want to do it. We're going to do our best to help you with that. So to do that, let me first pull up our website. Okay, so we're on our website now, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up our blog. And I'm going to go down to the bottom because this, I believe, was our very first blog. 5 reasons why outsourcing your margin improvement beats DIY. Okay. Let me just read this first part. When it comes to reducing expenses or improving your margin, you have probably tried to do it yourself. You might think, we've got people who can do that, and you have the best intentions to follow through. But somehow it never makes it to the top of your to-do list. And suddenly you realize you've been saying, I'll get to it, for years. In the meantime, your expenses have gone up. You spent more money, man-time, than you needed to, and you're not even sure where to start. This is the story for too many people that we talk to. They are looking to save money by bringing the process in-house, but it doesn't pan out the way they think. Their team isn't as successful in negotiating contracts or staying on top of the process, and despite hundreds or thousands of hours spent, there isn't much cost savings to show for it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. That's kind of the reason why we say you shouldn't, but we're going to talk about why you should. And the first thing we're going to talk about is expertise, or in this case, lack of expertise. So over the past few years, we've seen one of the toughest times in staffing, which anybody in the senior care industry knows this all too well, especially in the healthcare field. Your teams are stretched thin and often asked to do more with less. You hired them to be clinical experts, not experts in negotiation or cost reduction. These skills are outside their scope of expertise and outside their scope of work. Asking them to participate in a comprehensive margin improvement project is beyond what you have hired them to do. Okay, so the best thing to do if you want to have someone internally do it is pick someone who is not close to the category you're tackling. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in reason 3, why it's a good idea to have someone not right in the middle of it. But for now, we'll just say that's the best thing to do. I think the finance department or accounting department is a good place to look, because those are people that have analytical skills and could be good at this type of a project. Okay, so that's where I would look to find those people. So once you found them, here's the process. Here's what you want to see them go through. And I'm going to pull up our process that we go through to show what these people should do. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull that up. Okay, here we go. So the first step, preliminary analysis. You don't need to worry about this when you're doing it internally, because this is something that we do. We look at your accounts payable file and we're able to get a pretty good idea of what we could save you if we were to do a project. That's not really necessary internally because you've already decided to do it. So we want to jump in. Now, having a copy of the accounts payable file, though, is a good idea, even if you're doing it internally, because let's say you're looking at a particular category like medical supplies or especially medical equipment. Many people have multiple suppliers for medical equipment. It can be 6 or 7 even. And so you want to make sure you have everybody identified. And by having the accounts payable file, you can do that. So for this part, I would have the accounts payable file. Then project authorization. Now this is important even when you're doing it internally. I mean, we have it here because we need to get authorization before we start a project with our client. But in the case of doing it internally, you still want that authorization. You want everybody to know in the organization that this project's been approved, somebody's been assigned to it, and it's important to respond to them, important to give them the time and information that they need so that this can be successful. You want buy-in in the whole organization and have everybody know that. So that's very important to start off with that, okay? The next step is information gathering. So this person you've chosen needs to start collecting data. The contracts the very first thing they should be starting with. What are my contract? If I signed let's say you're doing waste, okay, and you just signed a 3-year agreement 2 months ago, and it's binding, and the only way you can get out is with cause. Well, you may not be able to do this one then. You may just have to wait for a while because you're bound for a while. So it's very important to look at that contract first. So let's say you're assuming you're okay contract-wise, you can get out of it, or maybe you're not bound by a contract. Then you want to gather other information, such as invoice copies, usage reports from the suppliers, MDS data, which, for example, let's say you're doing therapy, therapy services. That's very important. Also, there's going to be interviews with key staff. We have what we call client champions, and these are the people that are closest to a category. So we would want to talk to them and get information needed for this category, because we're not just looking to save money, but we want to make sure that whatever we do is going to not hinder our quality or not going to reduce it. It's going to either keep it the same or improve it, and hopefully get better pricing too. So we need to get all this information together. Okay, so once all that's together, then we're going to move to the next step, which here we're calling margin improvement. Now, we would utilize subject matter experts to get started with this, but let's take your internal person. They need to, in many cases, develop a request for proposal or an RFP. Okay, let's say they're doing food or therapy services or pharmacy or something like that. They would need to develop that, and to develop it, they need all the data. They need to ask all the right questions. Make sure everything is in there, that the supplier, these people bidding, they need to have the information needed to give good bids. Otherwise, they can't give good bids. And I guarantee you, the better that RFP is, the better the bid's going to be. They're going to feel more confident in what they see, and they're going to be more aggressive in their pricing. Okay, so it's very important. The quality of the request for proposal is very important. So we want to get that together, and then it's going to go out to hopefully numerous suppliers. Maybe you're an incumbent supplier or provider, and then maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 competitors. Okay, if you get more than about 3, it gets to be a lot of work. So we usually try to limit it to maybe 2 or 3 competitors and plus the incumbent. But whatever you want to do, that's obviously you go ahead and do that. Now, one thing to let you know, that we never disclose pricing. We never disclose the incumbent pricing, mainly because we don't feel like it's fair to the supplier to have their pricing out there. That's just one of the things we've learned over the years. And plus, when you're getting an RFP or when you're getting pricing from a competitor, it's best to just say, "Give me your best pricing." Don't necessarily try to beat a price. Just give me your best. Here's all the information. Just give me your best price. Okay. So once they've done all this, once they've sent the bids out, got the bids back, maybe they've had to do some follow-up questions, follow up with the suppliers to drill down on things or answer questions. There's a lot of that happens during this process. So let's say they get all that done, it's all together. Now we're going to move to the stage we call the recommendation. And this is where we're going to talk to the decision makers. We're going to give them the information needed, the analysis, maybe some pro formas to show, hey, here's what the finances are going to look like if you accept this certain proposal. Everything they need to make a good decision for the organization. That's what we want to do here. Okay. Now, once they have all their information, maybe there's a couple more follow-ups to the particular supplier they want to ask questions of or whatever in that stage, we'll do that. And then once a decision is made, then we'll get to the implementation. And the implementation, if you decide to switch, from your incumbent to to another supplier or provider, then obviously there's an implementation stage there to bring them on. And depending on which category it is, that can be a lot. So you need to make sure that's organized properly. If you're staying with the incumbent and just getting better pricing, then you want to make sure that pricing is implemented properly. And once it's been implemented, you want to follow up, after a month, 2 months. Go in there and look at the pricing, make sure it's what it's supposed to be, and even measure the savings, measure against that best baseline and see, am I getting what we thought we were going to get? If not, why not? And you kind of look at that. So that's very important. And then monitoring. So you're just going to monitor after that to make sure the pricing is right. And if a mistake happens, which sometimes does happen, not even on purpose, it just happens, you can follow up and make sure that that's taken care of. Okay. So that's step one on the expertise. So let me go back now to our blog here, and let's look at lack of time. So even if your team does have the expertise, they likely don't have the time. There are so many other demands on their schedules that it is hard to carve out the space to do such a comprehensive project. And it is pretty comprehensive. We see this time and again when we work with clients. We have talked with people who are eager to do a project, but never actually get around to do it. Everyone wants to save money. We don't have to convince them that saving money is a good idea. It's just finding the dedicated time to make it happen. That's the difficult part. So what I would offer as advice here is whoever you pick to do this project, they need the time. They need to block off their calendar. Possibly they need to put their phone and their computer on do not disturb, so they have the time to do it, because it does take the time and they need to be able to focus for a while. Okay, if they're having to do their day job and plus try to do this, it's going to be frustrating not only for them but for the people they're trying to work with. It's just going to be very hard. So they need the time to be able to do that. So I can't stress that enough. And maybe the job they're doing, hopefully there's somebody else in the company that could possibly do that job while they're doing this project. Okay. Now let's go to reason 3, supplier-provider relationships with your employees. Few people are wired to be negotiators or to have difficult conversations. Most employees that we speak with don't feel comfortable negotiating with people they are working shoulder to shoulder with. With a strong emphasis on relationships and mission, especially in the nonprofit space, it can feel cold and ruthless to focus on the money. And additionally, there is a strong bias towards current vendors or suppliers. Trying to negotiate with them can make people feel less comfortable working with them in a collegial manner. Plus, your team is accustomed to certain products and the quality of those products. There is a fear that changing might mean having to work with unfamiliar or inferior products or solutions. Now, we never ask our clients to skip on quality. In fact, they have final say over all decisions, even if there isn't cost savings. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there and not read the rest of that. But this can be difficult, these relationships. Now, relationships are good with your suppliers and providers. Don't get me wrong. It's important. You know as well as I do, they're very critical. They provide critical products and services for your organization that's required for your organization to run in a quality manner. Okay, that's important. However, when it comes time to negotiating with them and looking at other options, it makes it very difficult, those relationships at that time. So that's another reason why it's good to pick somebody outside of that particular category. And once again, maybe somebody in the finance department, like I mentioned earlier, who maybe they're familiar with this company, they talk to them sometimes, but they don't have quite that emotional connection that the people that they're working with shoulder to shoulder and having meetings with every day and all that. So that's very important. We've even had people say to us, "Oh goodness, we're just glad you're doing this, because I don't like being in the middle of that. I don't like having to deal with that. I just want to do my job." And so that's why it's important to pick somebody possibly outside to do that. Okay, reason number 4: lack of industry-wide pricing knowledge. As an individual, you only have so much insight to pricing. Everything is compared to what you have been paying, but you don't have the insights to what others are paying. Okay. And of course, HMS, we have the advantage of seeing the pricing data. And there is an advantage to this, and especially with something like pharmacy. Matter of fact, I think I can pretty well confidently say we've never had a client yet in 16 years that could look at other pricing and go, okay, yeah, we're doing pretty well there. Even if they don't even know for sure if their contract pricing is correct. Okay, so having that information is very important, and you're not going to have that necessarily doing it yourself. But there's a couple of things you can do. One, you could, if you've got some friends in other communities, maybe through Leading Age or one of the other organizations, you know people, and maybe they're not in your geographic area, you're not really competing with them in the local market. Maybe you could talk to them and kind of see what they're doing, do something like that. But that's probably the best advice I can give you as an internal person, to try to know what others are paying, is to possibly talk to colleagues, other people. Okay, reason number 5, lack of singular focus. When you use internal resources, people are pulled in many directions, but when you bring in an outside partner like us, of course, your success and safety is our top priority. I'm not going to go into that because this is about you guys, not us doing it right now. So This lack of singular focus is a big deal. We talked about it in the lack of time. I remember years ago when I was in IT, and we had to look at our telecom contract about every 3 years. That's how long they were. Well, so about every 3 years, we would go out to bid and do the things we need to do. Well, I would kind of forget things because this isn't something I did every day, and things changed, and so it would take a while to do it. And I didn't. I'll be honest, I didn't always do the best job when I wasn't focused on it all the time, like I am in this part of my career. But so what I would say there is, whoever you have doing it, once again, give them the time they need, because it's going to take them a while to get up to speed. They may have to research on how to do RFP, try to find templates, things like that. So just make sure they have the time to do it. So anyway, that takes us to the end of the blog. That's what I wanted to cover today. If you have any questions, you can go to our website and send an email, or you can schedule a call. We can talk about it. I would even love to get feedback on this video to see if it's helpful, and give us ideas for future videos. If there's something some advice or information we can give you that will help you in your job, we'll be happy to do that. So just give us the ideas. So anyway, I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.